Wish me luck.
Developed by Nextech, creators of games like Crusader of Senti and Ranger X on Mega Drive, Cyber Speedway is a futuristic racing game back when this particular subgenre of racer was exploding in popularity. It accompanied games such as High Octane and Wipeout to hit the next generation consoles in their early days in an attempt to present a fresh take on the racing genre. There's also a few interesting things going on with Cyber Speedway, and the first is that the vehicles, or sleds, in the game were designed by Sid Mead. In addition to classic films like Blade Runner and Aliens, he also had experience designing for video games like Sid Mead's Terraforming, and of course, this one right here. Well, of course this translates to some good-looking sleds, but what about the rest of the game? You start off as a freshman racer trying to take on various alien civilizations who are currently in a kind of stalemate after an enormous interplanetary war. Naturally, the evolution of this is a badass racing event taking place all over the galaxy, interspersed with cutscenes explaining the next stage and giving insight into your relationship with the racers in the game. At the beginning, you don't have much in the way of upgrades, so it's off on your first race. And it's very recommended to start on the easier difficulty setting to get a unique set of tracks set on the planets that ease you into the design. There's a few things to know about how Cyber Speedway plays that sets it apart from a game like Wipeout, which is a pretty close game conceptually. You feel floaty in a good way, like you're actually driving an anti-gravity sled. And unlike Wipeout, the shoulder buttons aren't brakes, they're boosts. The boosts are used to push you around corners, and once you get used to the rhythm of using these, it's extremely satisfying to get around a corner just right by essentially forcing yourself around it. The AI in the game is just good enough to present a fair challenge, and the playing field is pretty level as everyone has the same rockets to fire at each other, win races, get upgrades that are more appropriate to some planets than others, and you've got yourself the bones of a decent racing game. Why just decent? Why not perfect? Well, as fair as the AI in Cyber Speedway feels most of the time, it does like to smack you around and deaden your momentum, and this gets really frustrating. Additionally, your opponents are really trigger happy. Sometimes a complete hailstorm of missiles will smash into you, and if you get hit at all, you've lost. Then you need to restart no matter how well you've been sledding. Finally, let's talk presentation. For an early Saturn game, Cyber Speedway looks pretty good. It certainly has its own personality, and the texture mapping isn't too bad. The frame rate is also nice and high, and the draw distance is quite acceptable. Some of the spot effects like the water, while nice in theory, in practice don't look so hot, with jagged sprites shooting up from the water's surface as you skim over it. Additionally, you're either going to love or hate the inter-race cutscenes, which are more of a bizarre image of a melted pizza man or a green space woman speaking with a mouthful of sand. As much as I appreciate the effort to establish a narrative world, I seriously cannot tell what some of the characters are even meant to be. Special mention should be made of the soundtrack in the US release. The Bygone Dogs, an indie rock band formed to assist with music for certain Saturn games, provide the soundtrack to the US release, and the music is pretty good. The same can't be said for the European and Japanese releases, which is fairly generic at best and annoying at worst. And that's Cyber Speedway. A pretty okay racer, which is definitely worth a go for the curiosity of it anyway. The soundtrack in the US version is really good, the controls pretty solid, and the overall design of the title is great. Where it falls down is the occasionally wonky race results from overly aggressive AI, and physics that don't quite make up for a fair racing experience sometimes.